Hey, everybody. It's been a while. The last episode that I did was like a New Year's year in review kind of thing for 2023. And it's already like mid-February as I'm recording this.
Where have you been?
Yeah, I kind of got busy. Kind of got lazy too. It's a bad combination. Yeah, I traveled to Ohio to see family over, like not Christmas, but like after Christmas, like in the new year. And I traveled to Cleveland and I traveled to Columbus and went to see a Columbus Blue Jackets game with my family. It was just fun. I went on a date in Cleveland. And if you know me, it makes perfect sense to go on a date in a city that I don't live in because it's much less stressful to go on a date when you know you're going to be 2,000 miles away the next day. So I had fun. It was a good date. It's like the first date I've been on in a long time. Heaven forbid I date somebody in the city I live in. But anyways, yeah, I've done a lot of traveling. Like I said, I went to Ohio. Just like in this last couple of weeks, I went to Las Vegas for the first time ever. I've never been to Vegas before, and it was never really somewhere that I saw as a destination vacation for myself. But I mean, now that I live in Salt Lake City, I mean, it's 6 hours away. Vegas is 6 hours away from Salt Lake City. But I mean, other than maybe like Boise, Idaho, the next nearest major city in the United States from Salt Lake City. That's how far away it is, 6 hours. I'm used to growing up in Ohio, and like Columbus is 2 hours away from Cleveland, and Cleveland is 2 hours away from Pittsburgh, and Columbus is 2 hours away from Cincinnati. And it's just like, it's all so close together. But you get out here in the West, and actually, let me look it up. So to drive from, according to Google right now, from Salt Lake City to Las Vegas is 6 hours and 8 minutes right now. I feel like it was a little less than that when I went last time. Around 6 hours, though. And let's see what the next closest one is. Salt Lake City to Denver is 7 hours and 47 minutes. Okay, I think the next biggest city is Boise. Let's see how long it takes to get to Boise. 4 hours and 55 minutes. So that's, if you want to consider Boise a major city, that one's actually the closest. So it's 4 hours and 55 minutes, just short of 5 hours. I think I'm going to try to go there this year. Well, it's easier to travel now because some idiot that I know who basically drives, like a miniature version of a monster truck, all jacked up with huge tires, and it's just ridiculous. I've driven it a few times out of necessity, and it's just like I feel like I'm going to run over something every time I'm in it because it's just such like a dangerous vehicle to drive because it's so big, obnoxiously big with the big tires, which actually when you live out here, the big tires are kind of important because, there's like if you go up into the mountains, you need big tires or you're not going to get where you're going, especially if it's snowing. But anyways, this idiot with his monster truck ran over my vehicle, my 2005 Toyota Corolla. I bought it in Cleveland when it was 11 years old, and I took it to Florida, and it made the drive out to Salt Lake City via Ohio, Florida to Ohio to Salt Lake City, and it was it was an old piece of junk. It looked horrible, but it was so trustworthy. Like I've never had a vehicle that I've had to put so little maintenance into, and just it was always basically a great car. Although there were a few times where I'd be driving down the highway and a part would fall off, and I just throw it away. The last time I did that was on a trip to Nevada through the desert. Oh, and the car started smoking, and whatever was smoking, I just ripped it off and threw it away. That's the good thing about having an old car. There's a lot of good things about having old cars. Is first of all, you don't pay a ton of insurance. Well, I mean, you pay a ton of insurance no matter what you buy and what you own. But I mean, compared to some of the other stuff, like I think insurance starts around $150 $50 now for an old cheap car. But you get into like newer cars, the insurance could be up to the like $300 a month, maybe, probably more if it's like a really nice car. But it's like, you know what? I don't really want to have a nice new car if it means I have to pay more for insurance on it all the time. So that's why I loved having an old beater. When there was a problem with it, it's not like I had to rush to the dealer and fix it. I just let it go if it wasn't all that important. Like some of the things that were wrong with it is didn't have an overhead light. Like I said, there was stuff underneath falling off, and I knew it wasn't like super important, but it could be important on the right days. Like one of them was a panel, and when the rain or the snow would splash up underneath the car, it would just like strike the battery directly. So after I removed the panel, but yeah, it was just one of those cars where it was always so good that you couldn't get rid of it just because of minor flaws. But it was so ugly. The front panel was held together by a USB cord, like a USB-C. I can't believe that this thing made it with me all those thousands of miles everywhere I went. And it just gave me such little problems. But my luck came to an end. I mean, as trustworthy of an old vehicle as that Toyota was, it couldn't take on a monster truck, apparently. So I'm horribly annoyed with the idiot who ran over the vehicle. They totaled it because it was so old. And there was so much rust underneath. I bought it in Cleveland, and where there's like so much salt everywhere. But then I had to go buy a new vehicle, and it's like, oh, I don't want to buy a vehicle. Like, I can't think of anything that I enjoy less than trying to buy a vehicle. Dealing with the insurance companies, dealing with the DMV, trying to, I usually buy used cars, so I have to haggle with people. And, I drove out to some town called Bountiful the other day, and which isn't too far away, but it's like, okay, well, am I going to get there and I'm going to buy the vehicle and everything's going to go smoothly, or am I going to waste 40 minutes round trip traveling to this place just to deal with some weirdo, It's always a crapshoot. Like when you're dealing with internet strangers, it's like there's a lot of people out there who are good people, and there's a lot of people who aren't. And it's kind of hard when you're surfing the web anonymously through Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or, I don't know, whatever. It's hard to know who's who. Are you going to go meet a serial killer? Hey, I was going to get a car, but then I was murdered. I don't think people are trying to lure me into their homes to take advantage of me and murder me. I could be wrong. Who knows? It's usually much more attractive people. But the only good thing that came out of this was that, I was talking about how like the next city is like 6 hours away. 5 if you're talking about Boise. Yeah, I mean, the only good thing that came out of this whole having my vehicle totaled is that I put the money towards a hybrid, like a half electric, half, gas. Actually, I had to explain that to somebody. I'm not sure if I need to do that because it seems pretty obvious to me, but it's not an electric vehicle. It's not a gas vehicle. It's a hybrid of the two. And the gasoline engine charges the battery and the battery charges the gasoline, I think. I'm not sure how it works. It's probably magic. There's probably like a pterodactyl in there like on a treadmill. But just like, holy crap, man. Just living your life, hanging out one night. Get a knock on the door. Sorry, I ran over your vehicle. And destroyed it. First, I was excited because I was talking about how the front panel was held together by a USB cable. I was thinking, all right, they're going to fix it. But they didn't fix it. They totaled it. I was really happy up until the point where they totaled it. But then it's like, crap, I got to go buy another vehicle. It's going to cost me thousands of dollars. Dude, some people are like a liability, man. Like, they're kind of dumb, and then they do dumb things, and they not only destroy their own lives, but they damage yours as well, Crap, man. It set me back by at least a few months, I guess. But anyways, I'm hoping that the fact that it's a hybrid will encourage me to drive around more often. I mean, I live in Utah where there's like, I don't know, like 6. Wait, let me look it up. There are 5 national parks in Utah. Arches National Park, Bryce National Park, Canyonlands, Capitol Reef, and Zion. And actually, I went to 2 of those this weekend. One of them worked out, the other one did not. I actually, my friend was going to like Super Bowl festivities, like the not the actual Super Bowl part, but like early in the week, you can just go do things and just hang out in Las Vegas. And she's like, you know what, my family would appreciate it if you like hung out with me while I was there, so I'm not all alone in Vegas. And I'm like, okay, I'll meet you there. And it's like, again, it's like a 6-hour drive, so it's like, why not? We went inside that new arena, Allegiant Field, I think. It's weird as a Broncos fan to have gone into my heated rival stadium to watch my other heated rival perform. No, it's kind of screwed up, It's like the Super Bowl was just a couple of days ago as I'm recording this. And, Kansas City won the Super Bowl in the Raiders Stadium, their rival. And John Elway handed Patrick Mahomes the Lombardi Trophy. Like, are you serious? Why, John? Why? John Elway was my hero growing up. Stabbed me in the back. Ow. Stabbed all of the Broncos nation in the back. Taylor's boyfriend got another Super Bowl trophy. I don't know how to feel about that. Everybody is talking about how it's fake, like it's just made for TV or whatever. But it doesn't seem like it. It seems like they legit like each other. Travis Kelce grew up in Cleveland Heights, and I lived in Cleveland for a while. My friend that I went to Vegas with, we walked into a sporting goods store, and there was a Cleveland Heights football jersey on the wall, like for sale, like Travis Kelce's, high school uniform. And it's like, what are the odds of traveling to Vegas and seeing a Cleveland Heights jersey, I'm not a big gambler though, so like I didn't gamble at all when I was down there. I did see the Sphere, I think it's called, that big new music arena that looks like a smiley face on the outside if it wants to, and it can look just like really like anything. And I just drove down there. I took my friend to the airport at like 4 a.m. and I'm just like, I'm here. I'm just gonna stop and I'm gonna check out the Sphere. It looks kind of cool even at night when nobody else was there. Apparently somebody climbed it a couple of days later. The final score of the Super Bowl was 25-22. Chiefs over the 49ers. The Chiefs beat the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC Championship, and the Niners beat the Detroit Lions. Unlikely, because when I turned off that game because I was just bored of watching television, and I just kind of assumed Detroit was going to win. And then next thing I know, I checked the score, and San Francisco came back and won. This was a good matchup, even though I really dislike both of the teams. I'm not a San Francisco 49ers fan or a Chiefs fan because they are old-time rivals of mine, of my Broncos. So I wasn't going to be happy regardless of the outcome. But man, for not liking the actual teams, the 49ers and the Chiefs are pretty likable dudes. I saw George Kittle up and not really close in person, but in person. He seems so scraggly. I didn't expect him to look like that. He was like one of my fantasy players this year, and he did well for me. He averaged well. But it's like I didn't know what he looked like until I got there. But there's a lot of likable players. As much as I don't like my rival, Mahomes is a pretty cool dude. I remember watching him in the preseason of his first year when he started and thinking, this is going to be a long few years. Just from some of the throws that he was throwing immediately in the first quarter of the first, preseason game for the Chiefs that year. I was just like, whoa, this is going to be a long time. And then Jim Harbaugh got hired by the San Diego. Well, they're not San Diego anymore. San Diego Superchargers, San Diego. I don't know how that song goes. It's a pretty cool song, but you can't sing it anymore because they are not in San Diego. So anyways, the LA Chargers just got Jim Harbaugh as their coach. And as an Ohio State fan, I'm glad that Harbaugh's gone. As a Broncos fan, I am not happy that Harbaugh has arrived at my other rival. So now we're going to have the Chiefs, who are just dominant. They've won, like 3 Super Bowls in 4 years or something like that. Let me look at the history here. Kansas City won this Super Bowl, the previous Super Bowl. So they won this year against the Niners. Last year they won against the Eagles. And this year they didn't need the referees to get them through. The year before that, LVI, 2022, the Rams played the Bengals in the Super Bowl. And before that, it was Tampa Bay and Tom Brady beating the Chiefs in 2021. And then I didn't even realize this, but apparently the last Super Bowl that the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo was against Kansas City as well. I don't know how I don't remember that. That was the 2020 year. So it was like right during the beginning of the pandemic. That's why I probably don't remember. But anyways, before that, it was the Patriots beating the Rams. And I guess that'd be the Jared Goff Super Bowl, right? When Jared Goff was with the Rams before the big trade. Eagles and the Patriots the year before that. That was the year when the Eagles quarterback did the Brady special. Patriots beat the Falcons the year before that. The Broncos beat the Panthers. And I guess I could just keep going, but Patriots before that against the Seahawks. Seahawks over the Broncos. Ravens versus the Niners. That was the Harbaugh Bowl. Giants versus the Patriots. Packers versus the Steelers. Now we're getting to way back. Saints, Colts. Steelers, Cardinals. What was I looking at earlier that made me feel so old? It was, what was your first video game console controller? And mine was number 1. The Atari back in the 80s. It's like, holy crap. Just for it to be the first option. I guess that'd be like if you're old enough to watch the first Super Bowl. The Packers versus the Chiefs in 1967. I could go through them all, but I won't. But anyways, something I didn't really think about is there's a certain amount of rotations within the Super Bowls. Okay, so, this one was Paradise, which is a weird word because it seemed like it was in Vegas, the Strip. So apparently there's the downtown area, which is where we stayed. And then there's the Strip, which is very long and very arduous to get through. I saw Jim Rome talking outside of a hotel, and I kind of wanted to go see him talk in person, but it was raining the entire time, and it's just kind of ruined the mood. Okay, so let's go back and look at where the last Super Bowls were. Paradise, Nevada, Glendale, Arizona, that's Phoenix, Inglewood, California, that's LA, Tampa, Florida, Miami Gardens, which is, Miami, Atlanta, Georgia, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Houston, Texas, Santa Clara. So it's actually moved around quite a bit. East Rutherford, New Jersey before Glendale, Arizona. So it's Indianapolis back in 2012, Arlington before that. Just, there's a lot of places where they can have Super Bowls nowadays. I can't tell if it's just chatter or if there's something real going on there, but the Cleveland Browns they bought some property out in a suburb that's kind of questionably laughable. And it's just does anybody actually want to go out there to watch a football game? There's a lot of neighborhoods in Cleveland that kind of people like to make fun of, and that's one of them. But Brook Park is what it's called. Didn't Cleveland learn their lesson from the first time when they lost their team? They refused to buy another stadium people can do what they want, right? But Cleveland cares so much about football. The Clevelanders do. It's their identity. And they lost it once and they had to get it back. I don't know if there's any substance to them, to these memes I keep seeing, but it's just okay, well, are you going to try to keep the Browns in Cleveland or are you going to let it move out to the suburbs? Kind of remind me of Detroit, urban flight, white flight was such a big deal in Detroit back in, I don't know, whenever let's look it up. I love Wikipedia. What is the Pontiac Silverdome? The Pontiac Silverdome opened in 1975, right around the time when people were white flighting the heck out of downtown Detroit. And it was just out in this weird suburb out in the middle of nowhere. I guess in theory, it's easier to go park out in the suburbs because there's better parking spots, but there's nothing as cool as the buzz of going downtown to watch a game, unless downtown is Detroit. Literally, I don't know. It's been a while since I've been there, but I went to watch a baseball game downtown. In the first year of the new stadium, the new baseball stadium in Detroit. And literally right across the road was just like some of the worst abandoned just apartment complexes. And it's like, I don't want to really be here. Although since then I've lived in Cleveland and I experienced all that like firsthand. So I don't know. I was a young one at the time. Oh, but anyways, it's kind of weird. You build a football stadium for, I don't know, like 60, 70,000 people. And how many games are there in a football season? 17. And usually like half of those would be home games. So let's cut that down to 8 or 9 games at home. And then you add 2, maybe 1 or 2 preseason games. So 10 maybe. And the entire city is paying for everybody just to go downtown 10 times a year. I can never tell, like it depends on who you ask. Some people would say, this does not make a city better to have a sports arena downtown because they end up paying more than it's valued at. It's like the value of getting people downtown really isn't that important compared to how much money they spend. I don't know though, man. It just kind of seems like sports teams put cities on the map. It's like, how often do you think about the city of Hartford? They lost their team. They lost their hockey team. The Detroit Lions, who made it to the NFC Championship for the first time in a very long time. They originated in Portsmouth, Ohio, their first year. And if you're not familiar with Portsmouth, Ohio, which I don't know why you would be, probably a big deal like back in the 1800s. Not so much today, like a lot of towns in southern Ohio. There are 5 NFL teams who originated in Ohio. The Los Angeles Rams, who started out as the Cleveland Rams. The Baltimore Ravens started out in Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns started out in Cleveland. Cincinnati Bengals, and then the Detroit Lions, who started in Portsmouth. So there are like 5 teams in the NFL who started in Ohio. And it's interesting, like looking back at how the NFL started. One of the leagues was called the New York League, and one of the leagues was called the Ohio League that ultimately formed the NFL in the very early days. But when the NFL started, Ohio had like a bunch of teams in the NFL. Portsmouth, Columbus, Dayton, Canton. Of course, it wasn't the same game then than it is now. But as somebody who grew up in Ohio, it's like, I can kind of see why football is so important to me. Even though I didn't grow up with parents who cared about football, people who grew up in Ohio grew up at the cradle of football, basically, as the cradle of NFL football as we know it in the early days. And so it's just always been a tradition. That's why the Michigan versus Columbus, Michigan versus Ohio State, rivalry is such a big deal. Like it really means a lot to people there, And I've heard similar things about like Texas, like people care so much about football in Texas. In the South, when I lived in the South, it's hard to believe that I would say that, yeah, actually people in the Southeast United States, Tennessee was where I lived, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, all those people cared way more about football than even people in Ohio did. And that's saying a lot. So anyways, I didn't even really have a plan for what to talk about today. But there's just like a certain amount of faith because I don't have an outline, faith in myself that I have to have that, I go to the studio and it's like, okay, what's going to come out of my mouth? Do I have anything to say? And it's weird that I do. I usually do. Like I've already been talking for, I don't know how long it will be after editing, but probably like 30, 40 minutes. It's weird that I can talk this much because I am a horrible, horrible introvert and I won't say anything to anybody for days at a time. All right, you know what? I'm probably halfway through this. I'm going to go ahead and call this part 1 of whatever this is. All right, go ahead and go to part 2. Actually, I just did this on the last episode where I said I was going to have like a sports and movie roundup of 2023 year in review. And I never went through with it because I went back and I listened to it because it was bad. And it was not fun. So it was kind of like, hey, this movie was popular, but I didn't watch it, so I don't know what to talk about it. So I just decided, you know what? No, thanks. I'm not going to make a part 2. Although I didn't edit out the part where I said, hey, listen to the sports. Anyways, hopefully I actually make it through a part 2 of this. So I'm just going to call it an end here. All right. Join me for part 2 if I make it. Thanks for listening to the show. The Great Big Intergalactic can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Apple iTunes, and anywhere else that podcasts can be heard. If social media is your thing, you can follow the program on Facebook or Twitter. If you enjoy the show, upvote, share, like, and subscribe. Whenever and wherever those things can be done. If you'd like to send feedback, the easiest way to do that is to email the show at tgbiuniverse@gmail.com, TGBI as in the Great Big Intergalactic, or you can leave a voicemail at 216-200-7940. Contributions could include written feedback, audio submissions, voicemails, or potentially even live guests. It was great having you today, and see you next time.